The interceptors are a real problem. We don't have enough to combat the missiles and the drones that the Iranians are unleashing, not just on us, but on our military bases in the Gulf countries and on the Gulf countries themselves, our allies who we've agreed to protect. And some of them have come saying, did you give any thought to what would happen to us? Did you plan on how to protect us as we're seeing bombs rain down on Dubai, for example, which is taking a lot of incoming. Many of our other friends in the Middle East who are genuinely friends of ours and great trading partners who are now feeling exposed and like we didn't live up to our promises, not to mention all the problems you mentioned because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And Pete Hegseth says that we did plan on the closure or what would happen in the Strait of Hormuz. But if we did plan, then why is it closed? Why can't we get ships through there? Why can't commercial vessels get through right now? President Trump threw out, we'll have the U.S. Navy escort ships that want to go through it, but that quickly went away because he was reportedly told we are actually not ready to do that. Our military can't do that. And there was also blowback on whether American parents want to see their sons and daughters on U.S. ships risking their lives to get oil through the Straits of Hormuz to send off to China. Is that really the mission? And all in the name of Israel, by the way. It's not even for a war that's helping the United States. So it's right now we're not doing that. So the Iranians do have an effective veto over this. And there's a real question about how we ever can secure it. How can we, because they've got potentially mines set up in the Straits. They've also got missile launchers on the shores that are proving problematic for us. And I've heard credible military experts say, without sending ground troops in to go stand along the shorelines of the Straits, we're not going to be able to secure this in a way that's going to satisfy commercial shippers.
You're exactly right. And guess what? By the way, even for those military experts, I hope that they also informed you that if you want to put troops on the shoreline, then you also have to have troops in the rear to make sure that nobody can fire on the troops on the shoreline. So that would be a massive deployment. This is the escalation trap that Professor Robert Pape talked about, is that you find yourself in an unexpected situation politically. What did LBJ often say? I'm not going to be the first American president to lose a damn war. That's what he would often say in the Situation Room. And he would push them to escalate, to escalate, to escalate. And at every point we would say, okay, let's send more American blood into the battlefield, and that will change it this time. And at every point, what we found out is that we were losing strategically while allegedly winning tactically. And that's what actually a full-blown ground troop invasion of Iran and securing of the Strait of Hormuz, that would be the definition of a supposedly tactical success. Because even at that point, let's think about what the cost of that would be, not just for the sustained deployment, the political and strategic implications. So yeah, we might lower the price of gas, but now we're in a multi-decade occupation of the country of Iran and fighting an insurgency with a civil war and a collapse of the state and refugee crisis, which is flooding the entire region. So that's why you don't get into these damn things in the first place. And I'm very worried. I do not see a way that this president will be able to get himself out of this one without.
That's because no one doubts. I think few doubt that Trump doesn't want that he thought this could be quick, cut off the head of the snake and we're going to have a better Iran. He definitely doesn't want some extended Middle East war. Trump does know that would be a political death knell to any future Republican election over the next 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years. But the risk is that we're saddled with it, because how are we going to reopen the Straits of Hormuz? Like, what is the plan to do that? Are we actually going to risk American lives by escorting commercial vessels through there? What are we going to do about mines? Are we going to risk American service personnel getting blown up in the name of reopening this passageway? And by the way, what is the American appetite for the loss of blood and treasure over there? It was one thing when we had Al-Qaeda killing 3,000 Americans one day who just went to work. It's another when we started it. And the basis for starting it, which I'm going to get to in a second, is really, really questionable. But let me make one point first. Now we have 13 dead U.S. service personnel, which is the same number that died at Abbey Gate, Sagar. And after we had Abbey Gate under President Biden, where he tried to pull all the troops out of Afghanistan, and it was a disaster, and it wasn't well run, and we had people holding on to our airplanes as they were flying out of Bagram, in which we gave up the base, his approval rating fell, and it never recovered. It never recovered. Here's a chart that shows where it went down, and it never went back up. And that's the last thing we know. Now we've got 13, 1 week into the war, a week plus. Where does that go? Right? Because
great.
Wars, it's not easy to predict how the deaths are going to happen. This was a refueling plane, Sagar. It wasn't even shot down by the Iranians. It wasn't even, it was an accident midair that wasn't brought down by friendly fire or enemy.
Right. Remember this, guys. Nobody in August 1914 said we're still going to be at war in 4 years. The plan was for a 6-week quick war, an excursion, all like the ones that we had seen before. This is why, by the way, I think that the Venezuela operation ended up being a nightmare because it convinced the president and many of the inner circle of those around him that that's how easy all military operations could be. And I mean, and I opposed that vehemently at the time, and I think it looks pretty good in retrospect. Is that this mindset of this madness, right? The Trump administration's own admission that nuclear material has not been secured. How do you secure it? Oh, well, you're going to have to send special operations. Problem: the Iranians know you're coming. So to protect those special operations, you'd have to deploy a large ground force to secure the entire area to battle all of the people who would want to target your special operators while they're going at the nuclear material and declare victory. Oh, wait, but that's going to take a titanic, potential American ground deployment, thousands of troops. Who knows how many casualties? He needs to secure the Straits of Hormuz. Great. Now we just signed up for a huge nation building and or exercise. Nobody in the Iraq War. I mean, do you remember Donald Rumsfeld? He said, I don't know if it'll take 6 days, 6 weeks or 6 months, but I can tell you it's not going to be more than a year. I remember all of these things. Yeah, I mean, Dick Cheney said that about Iraq. Nobody in 2001, October of 01, would have said we're withdrawing from Afghanistan in 2021. Do you think LBJ wanted to be in Vietnam in 1968? That's the point of all of these examples, is that you get into them and they become open-ended even when you wanted it closed, because you are no longer in a controlled system. We could control the diplomacy between these two nations, but we cannot control this now, especially with Iran in the classic situation of asymmetric warfare, but with nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose except to fight to the death. They have a hardened political will. Their population was supposed to rise up. Didn't happen. Totally fake, right? I mean, instead, we're actually seeing a huge rise of nationalism in the entire country. So now what? We want to foment a civil war?
That's part of the problem is the bombing of their fuel depots, their oil depots, which literally caused oil to be raining down on the faces of the Iranian people, their children, their babies in strollers, anybody who goes outside now after that happened. And that caused even the crazed lunatic Lindsey Graham to say to Israel, you might want to watch what you bomb. Actually, you might have gone too far. I mean, when Lindsey Graham is telling you you've gone too far in your bombing campaign, something very, very wrong has happened. But you mentioned that this is a war of choice, which I agree with. This is not what the administration says. Of course, the administration says we had no choice. Trump says, I had a feeling, I believed that they were about to develop a nuke, that they almost had a nuke. And now we had an interesting conversation that I heard today between Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck, in which O'Reilly seems to be shedding more light on that. We're going to play part of it for you now. Watch.
Reached a period in time, in history, where the CIA, NSA, all of our intel jibed with the United Nations and said, look, we knocked out a lot of their nuclear capacity in June of last year, but they have satellites and are close to being able to put together 10 nuclear bombs. Okay? 10. And I don't think the Trump administration is going to mind me saying this, even though it hasn't been made public, but I'm a reporter and I have the information. So Mossad went in and said, look, on this Saturday, the Ayatollah and 25 of his thugs are going to be in this place at this time. So what do you want to do? Now, that was after 3 months of negotiations with the Iranians to stop their nuclear weapons program. And the last negotiation in Geneva, Switzerland, the foreign minister of Iran, walks in and says, you know what? We're not stopping. Blank you. We don't care what you say. We're not stopping. And Witkoff, our chief U.S. negotiator, had a report back to Trump. So that's the information Trump has. Number one, they're close to 10 bombs. Number two, they're all going to be drinking tea on Saturday morning in this spot. And number three, they're saying blank you to the U.S. government. They're not going to stop. That's how the decision was made. But the president believes that he will be victorious in the next month or so. Puts us into April, puts us into China with Xi. And he believes he's going to have momentum after basically dismantling Iran, because that's what they're doing now. They're just wiping out its capacity to do anything, which is not easy, and that's why you're seeing the short-term pain. Now, people believe what they want to believe, and the president is no exception. If it comes his way, then he becomes a great president, which he wants, his legacy. If it doesn't, then the Republicans will probably lose in November. So that's where we are.
A lot to unpack there, Sagar. We've got 1 minute, so we have to take a break on SiriusXM, and we'll continue the discussion. But take the minute to go.
Privileged to be alive to have Bill O'Reilly lie to me twice in my life about WMD in the Middle East. I'm sorry, that's preposterous. There's no evidence for that from the IAEA. If that were true, the Trump administration would have said it. Remember, the only reason that they say that we're in this war is that Israel forced our hand, and that even whenever it comes to nuclear, they say that they were creating a ballistic missile shield for their potential nuclear capacity. There's been no DNI release, no CIA release, no even fake Colin Powell vial that can be held up, no yellow cake, no Judy Miller. So if there were even a remote case that were true, or as true as WMD in Iraq, they would have said it. They didn't say it because it's complete nonsense. That is completely manufactured consent, afterwards, that is being put out there to justify some of the feelings for the people that want to continue to be in this war.